Ah, Canada. America's preppy, snitch, golden child younger brother who can do no harm. What do they do better than our gun-slinging, fried butter-eating, overtly patriotic behinds? Healthcare, I suppose? More polite. Politicians are still goofy on either side of the border. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Steamtown National Historic Site, a place which actually isn't even in Canada. Steamtown is located in Scranton, Pennsylvania, on the site of the Scranton Yards previously owned by the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Erie Railroad. Now, the story of how Steamtown came to be a National Historic Site is a fascinating one in and of itself, but also a story for another day. Instead, we will be focusing on 4 international members of the museum's prize collection, those being Grand Trunk Western number 6039, Canadian National number 47 and 3254, and Canadian Pacific 2317. These engines all have quite interesting stories to tell, as you will see. Starting off with number 6039, its story is relatively short. A 482 wheel arrangement, known as the mountain type, was very versatile locomotive, with forged pilot wheels in the front to help guide the 8 drive wheels through curves, and 2 trailing wheels in the back to hold a firebox. These popular locomotives could be found on various railroad systems all across North America on both freight and passenger duties alike. Built in 1925, 6039 was a part of the Grand Trunk Western's U1C class, weighing in at 231,370 pounds, with 26 by 30-inch cylinders, 73-inch drivers, and a boiler pressure of 210 psi. These reliable workhorses produced a tractor effort of 65,000 pounds. The U1Cs could mainly be found on passenger duties, but due to their well-running and likability with crews, were also found on fast freights by the 1930s. Eventually, however, larger engines were brought in to do the heavy lifting, known as the superpower era, where engines like 482 Mountains, for example, would be designed with a larger firebox and an extra pair of trailing wheels, and evolve into 484 Northerns, or Confederations as they were called on GTW. After the Second World War, diesels would take over major mainline duties, with steam being regulated to secondary or branch line work. During this time, 6030 itself was leased to the Central Vermont Railroad, making it one of the last steam locomotives to operate in Vermont. Its fire was dropped for the last time in early 1959. F. Nelson Blount, who you may remember from our video on Strasburg Railroad number 89, was a well-known New England seafood magnate. He was also a rich steam enthusiast, which is a very mixed bag of people. Blount purchased 6039 for $7,500, making 6039 the only steam locomotive to be preserved in Vermont. Originally planned for display at the now defunct Pleasure Island Amusement Park in Massachusetts, 6039 would find itself at Mount Steamtown, USA in St. Albans, Massachusetts. 6039 and the collection would move to North Walpole, New Hampshire, before moving again in 1965 to the more permanent home in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Her final major move would be again with the collection in 1984 to Scranton, PA, where Steamtown is now located as a National Historic Park. 6039 now resides as a popular display piece, occasionally moved around as a centerpiece for informational displays for photo booths. However, during the 1984 move, 6039 cylinder casings were heavily damaged. With repairs being very expensive, it is unlikely it will ever move again under its own power. With that being said, it still receives regular cosmetic maintenance and oiling, keeping it in perfect shape. And with that is the end of 6039's story. A fun fact about 6039 is that it's the only member of Steamtown's collection to utilize a cylindrical Vanderbilt tender. The next engine we'll discuss is Canadian National number 47. While in the United Kingdom and other areas, standard gauge tank engines can be seen as multi-purpose, in North America they're used almost exclusively for switching duties. This is not the case for 47. She is a member of the X10A class of 464T locomotives, originally built for the Grand Trunk Railway by the Montreal Locomotive Works in 1914. as number 1542 of the K2 class. This was changed after the creation of CN in 1923. The X-10As boasted a boiler pressure of 210 psi, and with their 63-inch drivers, had a tractive effort of 32,487 pounds. While 464 locomotives are commonly known as Hudsons, they're known as Baltics in tank engine form. While a unique design, copies by Baldwin were also found in use on the Central Railroad of New Jersey, while a singular design from Alco was used on the obscure Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company. The X-10As performed commuter services out of Montreal until their retirement in 1959. Only 3 Baltics, including their American cousins, survived in the preservation. Aside from 47, number 46 lives in Longueuil, Quebec, while number 49 resides at the Canadian Railway Museum in Delson, Quebec. Number 47 was sold to F. Nelson Blount for $2,000. The engine became a part of his growing collection in North Walpole, New Hampshire. Nearly fresh out of a 1958 overhaul before retirement, number 47 was found to be in tip-top shape upon inspection and intended to be the main excursion power on Blount's Monadnock, Steamtown, and Northern Railroad. She began her excursion career in 1961, however, it was short-lived. After just 5 weeks, the Interstate Commerce Commission ordered the Baltic out of service due to the issue of missing maintenance papers. Contrary to popular belief, these papers were not lost in a fire, and eventually recovered by Canada's Board of Transit Commissioners in September that same year. However, the records revealed that number 47 was in need of costly flue repairs that had not been finished by CN. Sadly, that spelled the end of 47's excursion career. A study conducted in 2002 by the National Park Service found that 47 was in good condition and could be a candidate for rational operation. But after 21 extra years of exposure to the elements, who knows how true this is now? Maybe one day you'll at least receive some cosmetic care. The next 2 engines we'll look at are arguably Steamtown's 2 most popular engines. First, continuing on the theme of Canadian National, is 282 Mikado number 3254. 3254 emerged from the Canadian Locomotive Company shops in Kingston, Ontario in December of 1917 as Canadian Government Railways number 2854. It is a member of the S1B class of Mikados built for heavy freight service. CGR would merge with the Canadian Northern to form Canadian National in 1918. It was during a subsequent renumbering process where 2854 would become the 3254 that we all know today. The S1Bs had 63-inch drivers, just like the X-10As, and boasted a tractive effort of 53,115 pounds, allowing them to climb grades with the heavy trains with ease. A fun fact about the S1Bs is that they use insulated vestibule cabs, an improvement used on most Canadian locomotives after World War I to help protect their crews from harsh winters, even if it did the opposite effect during the hot summer months. Living a mostly uneventful life, 3254 would suffer a head-on collision with Great Northern number 1951 in British Columbia. While suffering a bowing effect in the frame, the engine was repaired quite quickly. 3254 and its siblings served the road well, hauling heavy freight across CN until their retirements. 3254 would be retired by CN in February of 1958. Unlike the other engines in this video, 3254 moved around a bit before being eventually owned under the Steamtown name. After 3 years of storage, the hefty Mikado was purchased in November of 1961 by motel owner Willis F. Barron. Barron originally had plans to operate the locomotive in Ashland, PA, along an abandoned Reading Company route, but the lines were ripped up before his plans could come to fruition, leaving 3254 to be displayed at his Ashland Court Motel. With the loss of interest in restoring the engine, Willis sold 3254 to the Adirondack Railroad in New York, but it was never moved there. 3254 would see life again in 1982 on the Gettysburg Railroad, being sold that year and restored to operating condition in 1985. That year, it participated in the National Railroad Historical Society convention alongside Huntington and Broad Top Mountain Railroad Consolidation number 38. 3254, ended up only operating at Gettysburg for a year and a half, as it proved to be oversized and overpowered for the railroad's smaller operations. It was put in storage in 1986. Meanwhile, during the mid-80s, Steamtown, USA had wrapped up moving its collection from Bellows Falls, Vermont to Scranton, Pennsylvania. A challenge presented itself as the museum began to run excursions, as the gradients of the Pocono Mountains proved to be challenging for weaker Pacifics that Steamtown used in Vermont, especially as the demand for longer trains increased. In 1987, Gettysburg traded 3254 for Steamtown's inactive ex-Canadian Pacific G5D class Pacific, number 1278. 1278 would end up running for 7 years at Gettysburg, with its career coming to an end with a bang. Now enjoys a quiet retirement at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugar Creek, Ohio. As for 3254, it began running under the guise of Delaware-Lackawanna, number 1271, due to the area it ran in. However, when Steamtown was placed under National Park Service, 3254 was reverted back to her Canadian national appearance. In 1995, it participated in Steamtown NHS's grand opening, with a host of other locomotives, including Reading Northern 425, New York Susquehanna Western number 142, and Milwaukee Road number 261. 3254 would run excursions around the park, up and through the mountains, on excursions to various nearby towns such as Tobiana, Carbondale, Goldsboro, and more. After 2010, 3254 became the last one standing for a while as the museum's only operating steamer. In 2010, the engine's original tender would be scrapped in favor of another loco, CN number 3377, an S1D Locato that Steamtown uses as a spare parts locomotive for 3254. In 2012, as a result of firebox issues and remaining frame damage from the 1941 crash, 3254 would be retired after the holiday season, conducting its last run on December 2nd. While 3254 was described as a rough rider by crews, was a massive coal eater, and ran through bearings at a reportedly accelerated rate, it was greatly missed by rail fans, but will likely never feel the heat of a fire again. The final engine to discuss is Canadian Pacific number 2317. This locomotive is a 462 Pacific, part of the CP's G3 class. Designed by CP's Chief Mechanical Officer, William E. Woodhouse, they were built after World War I to meet the demand of new steel heavyweight 6-axle passenger cars. Number 2317 was built in June of 1923 at the Montreal Locomotive Works as a member of the G3C subgroup. The heavy Pacifics weighed in at 144 tons with its 75-inch drivers and 200 psi boiler pressure. These impressive Pacifics had a tractive effort of 46,600 pounds, could likely pull trains at upwards of 80 miles per hour and more. While not much is known about its service life specifically, it is known that 2317 was stationed in Winnipeg for a good amount of its career. She served the road for 36 long years, hauling passengers across the system before being retired with an uncertain future in 1959. Our old friend F. Nelson Blum acquired 2317 in 1965, but became a display piece at Steamtown until 1976. That year, another Pacific, CP number 1278's flue time expired, leading to the Steamtown crew to fly 2317. It was in excellent condition and strong enough to pull the heavier trains. While the initial goal was to have the engine up and running in time for a series of Vermont bicentennial excursions, it was too heavy for some of the bridges intended to be utilized along the journey, and the project was pushed off, with CP Pacific number 1293 being used instead. 2317 finally returned to the hire in October of 1978, being one of Steamtown's main sources of motor power from then all the way until the move to Scranton, where on September 1st, 1984, it would lead a grand opening excursion through the city to mark the occasion of her new American citizenship. Between 1985 and 88, the locomotive was in and out of the workshops. Once Steamtown became a part of the National Park Service, it was a part of the regular excursion scene for 9 years until 2004, where various issues would sideline the engine for just shuttle trains around the yard. However, with one of these issues being tires, remedied in 2007, 2317 was back on the main line with limited dosages, running its final trips in September of 2010. Another engine popular with rail fans, 2317's poor mechanical condition means it will likely never see the rails again. Steamtown is currently in the process of restoring Boston Main Pacific number 3713 to replace both 3254 and 2317 on mainline excursions, and Baldwin 060 number 26 currently runs short shuttle trains through the yards and is occasionally allowed out on the main line. And with that includes stories of Steamtown's 4 Canadian favorites. We hope you stay tuned to learn more about this amazing museum and Capital Limited Productions.